with George.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name is Todd Brous. Uh, I'm your host for the evening. I'm here with Susan Schultz and Ashley Wilson, and we would like to welcome everyone to HBAP Startups. So let's get started. For those of you who are new to the Startups group, we have a few announcements that we do at the beginning of every meeting. We'll do some short networking breakout rooms, and then we'll come back together for our main event. First off is our mission. We're here to help foster and fortify an innovation and entrepreneur community coming out of the Harvard Business Analytics program. And our goal is to provide our members with the tools, knowledge, leadership, and confidence necessary to grow their businesses from the ground up. Susan.
And there are a bunch of different ways where you can stay in touch with us. So our website, the HBAP website, our YouTube channel, where we post up the presentations as long as the presenter gives us permission to, the newsletter, and all of this is, Todd just put it into the chat. So sign up and you will get automatic updates to tell you the next cool things that are happening. We also, if you're in HBAP, we have a Slack channel. And then, of course, if you know, just like Regina did, if you know somebody that you think would be interested in this community, invite them. It's a, it's a wonderful group, and we always welcome new people as well. And then just a reminder that the recordings are posted publicly as long as the presenter says it's okay on YouTube. Okay, so Todd, you want to do this one? You want me to?
Oh, okay. So I don't know if you recall, but we had a speaker last year, February 2023. His name is Ravi Sawhney. He had a book called Psychoaesthetics, and he just released version 2 of this book, and you can purchase it on Amazon. Let me put a link into the Zoom chat. Fantastic book. I don't know if we really want to go into the whole description of it, but it extends what he did with the transformative design and innovation principles, and demonstrates how this advanced design thinking methodology can help entrepreneurs and other businesses, other designers, come up with solutions to the issues and problems that they're facing. So Ravi spoke, and I thought it would be great for him to come, for me to put this in the here so you could buy the book and just make the announcement. So Ravi was awesome. Susan.
Yeah. And just one other cool thing about his book, and then we'll talk about all the upcoming places, is what he writes about it is that it extends his transformational design and innovation principles, which we heard really cool stuff about the last time. But then what he says now is this advanced design thinking can forge emotional connections and drive innovation across sectors. So I thought that was super cool as well. So tonight, we've got this very cool workshop with Todd, kind of a continuation of what we did last week, and a really, really cool format that Todd's come up with, if I do say so. And then next week is our Amanda Fetch, talking about misconceptions of Gen AI, which ought to be super interesting to listen to. Then we have Ravi the next week talking about his second book. So we both encourage you to go buy the book, read it if you want to, come with questions. It ought to be a really cool session. And then we have on June 26th, we have Christy Jenkins, and invite and introduction courtesy of Kelly, which was great. And Christy is going to talk to us about the athlete's mindset and how that pertains to all of us that are growing new businesses, whether it's a startup or improving the existing business that we're in. And she has got such a cool background. So she was a former professional athlete, top 10 in 3 different sports: trampolining, CrossFit, and beach volleyball. Then she's a co-founder of a multi-club football ownership group. She's a venture capital investor of Athletic Ventures, which is a syndicate of 150 plus professional athletes investing in Series A and later. And then she's a speaker that speaks around the world. So she ought to be just awesome to listen to. And she's just a really cool person as well. And then Just a quick reminder about our code of conduct. We want to create this inclusive, collaborative environment for everybody here. And so all rights are reserved by the presenter. As we've talked about, we follow the honor code, and we also follow the feedback methodology of just don't say anything that's not optimistic and supportive, because that's what works best for people. And then just a reminder, no personal recording of our sessions. We need to stay compliant with the all rights reserved by the presenter. And then also, as always, two things. If you want to present something, or you've got a speaker, or you're worried about something, a conflict of interest or something confidential, just reach out to Todd, me, and Ashley, and we will help you figure it out.
Right. So let's do some breakout rooms. Let me recreate them because I think we've got another person. Great. Sri just joined. All right. I will see everyone in about 6 minutes. Back. All right. Oops, wrong one. All right. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had fun in your breakout rooms. Thank you all. Just a little brief reminder, when you exit Zoom tonight, please, extra special, I need your feedback. I want to know how this workshop goes. Please fill out that survey. Tell me what your thoughts are. Give me the good feedback. Tell me how to improve this. I do want to use this I am using this in my course that I'm teaching. So just again, a reminder, on average, our recordings are made public. So, and please do stick around for some overtime. All right. So you all know who I am. That's me. Let me stop sharing and pull up my other slide. It's gonna take me a second, and you're gonna have to bear with me throughout this because I've got multiple decks and a number of things that need to be rearranged through these different pastures. So please bear with me on that one. But all right, let me move this over, and I'm going to go into screen presentation mode, view, full screen. All right, so tonight we are going to be continuing the conversation from last week, and we're going to be talking about, I hope you guys can see my screen, transformation effects. And I asked ChatGPT to come up with some names for what we could call this. And I got to tell you, I'm 95% confident that ChatGPT is really just trying to trigger me at this point. Because it knows about my background and my history of conversations with ChatGPT. So it's like it knows that Todd is concerned about these issues. So from humans to how, AI's role in shaping tomorrow's business models. Like, oh, thanks. And then when AI runs the show, reinventing business models in the age of algorithms. Yeah, thanks, ChatGPT. And rise of the machines, how AI is outperforming your best employee. Thanks. I'm completely triggered. And so just a little shameless plug before we really dive into this. I am teaching, this is the class. Let me put a link to this in the Zoom chat. Please share this. This is my class. It's starting next week on Tuesday. It meets on Zoom. If you're a creative or a designer, or if you know someone who is, that's what this class is all about. So please share that with your group. I would definitely appreciate it. I'm trying to get a lot more students to enroll. So, and we will be using a version of tonight's lecture, tonight's presentation and workshop in my class. So this should be fun for a lot of folks, I hope. And I also have to begin with context. You've heard me say this over and over again. And for those of you who weren't here last week, this was part of the conversation. This quote from Karim Lakhani, he's our professor. We love him. The marginal cost of cognition and creativity is dropping to zero. This is fundamental to everything in the age of AI. Now, what does this mean exactly? And I'm not going to go into too much details here, but this is a slide that I created that kind of goes towards explaining this, where the cost of cognition and creativity is dropping exponentially with AI. And the issue here, the question that still remains to be seen is, what does this red curve actually look like? This is still a hypothesis that humans with AI will reduce those costs to understand and create things. Time will tell if figure 2 comes around with a different shape of this curve for the humans with AI. And last week we talked about this. There's currently 3 big effects happening. Thanks, Don. 3 big effects that are happening with AI. augmentation effects, replacement effects, and transformation effects. And again, the augmentation effects are, this is the humans with AI. This refers to the tools that enhance human productivity and assisting us with our tasks. And it increases our efficiency and ultimately the output of people and organizations. And ideally, this should free up people to focus on more strategic areas of their work. The second one is the replacement effects. This is the automation of tasks. This is leading to the replacement of jobs where people are no longer needed in the workforce. And this occurs when generative AI systems fully take over tasks that were previously performed by humans, leading to that displacement, that job displacement in most situations. We've seen this throughout history. There's nothing new here. Machines, robots taking over assembly line jobs. These are not the droids you're looking for. Move along. But and while this leads to greater efficiencies and lower costs for businesses, the replacement effects also raises concern about unemployment and the need for reskilling those displaced workers. And the third thing, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, is the transformation effects. And quite frankly, this is the stuff that makes me drool. This excites me to no end. And this really refers to the creation of entirely new tasks, new roles, new business models, new industries, new ecosystems that will arise due to generative AI. And this fundamentally changes the nature of work and the nature of the economy. Everything that we do is about these transformation effects. So now, last week, we were talking about Mary Erdos. She presented at the May 7th event. She was talking about getting rid of no joy work, and that's a very controversial statement. We talked about it last week. That, well, who's to decide? Who gets to decide what is the no joy? And which is why I assigned some homework. I don't know if anybody actually did it. I'm going to assume you didn't. Let me put this into the Zoom chat. Here's a link to this Harvard Business Review article. This really goes to this to the effect of the transformation effects. AI is making economists rethink the story of automation. And this is the summary. As AI raises new fears about a jobless future, it's helpful to consider how economists' understanding of technology and labor has evolved. For decades, economists were relatively optimistic and pointed out that previous waves of technology had not led to mass unemployment. But as income inequality rose in much of the world, they began to revise those theories. Newer economic models of technology's effects on the labor market account for the fact that it absolutely can displace workers and lower wages. In the long run, technology does tend to raise living standards, but how soon and how broadly? That depends on two factors: whether technologies create new jobs for people to do, and whether workers have a voice in technology's deployment. So that's very concerning. And whether technology works out well for workers depends on whether society invents new things for them to do and to excel at. And if the economy is rapidly adding new occupations that utilize human skill, then the economies can absorb some number of those displaced workers. And what's important is that, quote, new work is the key to how technology affects the labor market. And I guess one of the questions with this is, are we actually seeing this now? That's up for debate. And the internet wasn't just a better way to do phone calls, and electricity wasn't just an alternative to gas lights, not gaslighting, but gas lighting. And the most important technologies create whole new categories of human activity. That means both new jobs and new demand as society becomes wealthier. And I think one of the examples from the article was drone pilots and sommeliers. And this is from that article. There's a quote from Michael Hammer: "Stop paving the cow paths." And he argued that old processes should not merely be automated; they should be reimagined from scratch. And rather than automating those tasks that we currently perform, we should invent entirely new ways for AI to make our lives better, and new ways for humans to develop and use their expertise. So again, we should stop paving the cow paths. So what I want to do right now is let me just switch over to another deck, because I want to open up the discussion about what your thoughts are on the transformation effects. Bear with me a second here. I think I can pull this up. All right, so can you guys see this? I hope you can see this. Can you see this? Okay, I hope so. I'm not seeing faces. Yes, I got a thumbs up. Thanks, Don. So the question that I have is, you know, continuing from last week, those transformation effects. What do you see here? What's the big X factor? Let me sorry, I'm pulling up one more thing on my end, so I can have this ready to go. I'm not finding it. Bear with me. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. So anybody want to start this off? What do they think about these transformation effects and this new work that we need to invent, and these new business models that we need to invent? No one wants to start? Oh boy. All right. Let me take a pause. Oh, sorry. Raise your hands, please, so I can call on you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was going old school, raising my actual hand, and
Oh, I didn't see it. Sorry.
Just because I'm used to Teams, so I'm not used to Zoom that much. But yeah, I mean, from where I stand, right? Clearly, AI, it's making a difference. Um, I I think during the conference, someone, one of the panelists mentioned this whole thing that it gives you superpowers, right?
Yes.
And I think it was the first gentleman that he started doing a bunch of stuff at the same time and let it run. Look, I'm looking at new warehouses, right?
Right.
And I got we got a third party company that is helping us with real estate, say in the Tampa area, and they sent me like 10 pages of a PDF. And sure, I have to then assemble all this, which are the best properties with the characteristics I'm looking for, and then present it to my CEO. I'm lazy, so I went to ChatGPT. I'm all right. Give me the 3 properties that are closer to this street. I want you to tell me the cubic square, not only the square footage that is already noted, but I want the cubic as well, so I can take into account the height. I want to know the monthly rent. I want to know the tax properties. I want to know what's the landlords including on each of these properties, blah, blah, blah. Something that I would have spent 3 hours by going by one and make my analysis. Literally, it was done in seconds. And I showed it to my boss, and of course, I looked like a rock star. Now, not only that, but I manage a fleet of 200 plus vehicles. I manage 10 warehouses with 15 distribution centers on top of it. I'm really I have a couple of analysts, and it's just funny that it's me, the 51-year-old, telling the 20-somethings, grab this, utilize it to your advantage. It's like if you give me some tennis shoes, right, that have like some jets on it, and I'm running faster. That's what it does, and it should accelerate and make you better. A lot of people were afraid of coding. Now you can use ChatGPT to help you code, and in many instances, it'll do it for you. So, from where I stand, I think that it doesn't replace my analysts at all. It doesn't replace me. I just think it makes it faster to do things that you would take forever before or a lot of time. It's just an accelerator from where I stand. And just last point, we are implementing a new ERP, and I have a couple of guys that have been with the company like 20 years, and they want to use the ERP. The ERP has also AI features, and they just want to replicate the same process for returns or the same process for everything. And I'm like, no, scratch it. Start from zero. Let's find a new way to do it. And that's the consultants that we have helping us on the implementation of the ERP are very thankful that I jumped in precisely with those words that says, forget that the way that you've been doing it forever. I don't want this fancy ERP to replicate the same crappy processes that we had before.
There you go.
Let's think a new way to do it.
And that's what I want to focus on is these new ways. So I guess let me, and Yuvika, I see your hands up. I want to reiterate the prompt, and I guess I could have done a better job of that. What new roles, business models, and industries could emerge due to the transformative these transformation effects? So Yuvika, let's go to you. You had your hand up. So
yeah, that's fine. I think I had skimmed the article, and I just had some thoughts around that because of this new wave of technology. And of course, in the past, things have always improved, right? The lifestyle has improved. But I think just the way how quickly AI is progressing, I feel that it's creating a big disparity, and there is going to be a big gap between folks who have access to the technology and folks who don't have access. So we are here, in the United States, but there are people in different parts of the world, right, where they don't even have access to internet, right? So I think that gap needs to be shortened, and there's going to be a lot of effort that's going to be required. I feel that one of the ways to bridge that gap is through education, right? Making people aware. And I think that's going to create more opportunities, right? Because when people become aware of what's possible to do with the technology, it's going to spur innovation, right? People are going to understand that, oh, this is what's possible. So of course, there are things that take a very long time, right? You can think of how we can save time in those areas, right? So I think when I was reading the article, yes, I mean, I cannot even imagine, my life, in the days how agriculture was and how things are now. But I think also thinking about what may not have been possible. So let's say, and COVID was a perfect example, right? Like how the vaccine was developed at such a fast speed because there was a necessity, but there are so many diseases, right? And the whole process of vaccine and drug development takes a very long time.
Right.
But now with artificial intelligence, right, that duration of the time that, a drug can actually come to market is going to be like much shorter, right? So I think there's going to be a boost to help with humanity, increasing the lifespan, right? Help address diseases, right, which had no cure. So those are some things that kind of come to mind. And I'll think more and I'll chime in.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And so I just noticed that Dawn put in the Zoom chat. So I'm going to call on Dawn here. You believe that the article points out that it's primarily knowledge-based workers who benefit from productivity increase, and that has been historical. Yes, that's true. There's been an increased demand for that. However, what do you see in the future? Do you see these knowledge workers maintaining, going? What are your thoughts on that, Dawn?
Well, I think they will benefit more. I mean, I think that there's someone already kind of touched on the issue of inequality, I guess. And so, the article talks about, the phrase, does a rising tide lift all boats or raise all boats? And a lot of times you think yes, but maybe that's not the case here. Maybe some boats are going to float higher than others. And I think that that's probably, just an example where, if you've got people that are working with spreadsheets, doing analysis, writing reports, any of those kinds of things, you can see where there's going to be an obvious advantage to augmenting your work or having that aid of AI, whereas opposed to, some other types of work that are more physical labor, may not. So
So physical labor, I like that. Physical labor has a moat. Okay. There's whoops, M-O-A-T. There's a protection. If you are a physical laborer, the likelihood of generative AI taking your job in the next X number of days, weeks, months, years is smaller than if you're a knowledge worker. But I want to push back on what you're saying, Dawn. These knowledge workers will benefit from AI, but if the cost of cognition is dropping to zero, the marginal cost of cognition is dropping to zero, that's what the knowledge worker does. So how does a knowledge worker in the future make money if it costs their boss nearly nothing to do that work? That was one of the things we talked about last week.
Yeah. So I am not sure what the answer to that is, but I want to just take one more quick second and then I'll let somebody else speak. So Garrett and I were talking in the intro about this quote unquote essential workers, right? And our observation was that during COVID, so many of the things that were considered essential workers, not all of them, because there were plenty of, well-educated professional people that were considered essential, but so many of those essential workers were kind of lower skilled or labor workers. And, we call them essential, but they're not, receiving the financial benefit. They're not being paid like they're essential.
Right.
So that's just sort of my start to think about the question that you posed.
I think that is incredibly insightful, and especially going to apply to us in the age of AI. Victor, you got your hand up.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you. I want to shed a light on what was just discussed. I think part of the answer to your question, Todd, is going to be timing. If you presume that a knowledge worker has a different way of thinking than a non-knowledge worker, generally speaking, right, then they may benefit initially from the augmentation effect, right, which is where the article kind of starts and where some common discussions start with people with AI succeeding, etc. But to your point, and I think you're correct, in the longer run, as what we would call today non-knowledge workers become trained in these tools, they may level up and be able to perform knowledge work because the source of the knowledge isn't the worker, it's the AI. So the transformation is a combination of a shift in the augmentation effect to almost a democratization of the knowledge. And then you start to see the replacement effects. The non-knowledge workers could potentially start to replace knowledge workers for the same tasks.
So I think that's the point of the marginal cost of cognition dropping to zero. It's the democratization of knowledge. It's the democratization of creativity. Anyone can know anything. The wisdom of the crowd drops away and becomes less valuable. So what does that mean? How do we deal? How does the global economy, how do businesses, how do organizations, how do business leaders, and this is kind of where I'm going with, where I'm hoping to go with this conversation. What does that look like? Because if we need to invent the new job, we need to invent the new business model, we need to invent the new industry. So think back, like electricity. Again, it's like, well, we never would have thought about this. The internet, we never would have thought we would be where we are today. We need to start thinking about that, and that's where I want to push this conversation. To how can businesses and entrepreneurs identify and capitalize on these opportunities? And where I hope we'll end up tonight. Garrett, you got your hand up. Thanks, Victor.
So to touch on who benefits, and then also what Victor was talking about, how it kind of knowledge workers level up. I think it's kind of it's a scale. You're not going to have everyone benefiting in the same way. They have the exact same technology, but you have to know the questions to ask it. For example, Ivan was talking about he knew to ask for cubic metrics, right? Someone else who was trying to get similar information from ChatGPT might not have known to get that piece of data that would have made the output less helpful, right? So he's on top, even though they have the same tool, he asked for that one specific thing as well. So it doesn't I think knowledge workers are still going to have the upper hand because they're going to have some domain knowledge of what to ask it. They need to know. They're not. You can ask it what you should ask it, right? You can kind of like have it tell you what to ask ChatGPT, but it's not as helpful as it is for someone who is in there and lives and breathes it and has that knowledge.
Right. So again, I that is perfect. That is beautiful. You still need the domain expertise to know what the right questions to ask are. But now let's project that forward. When anyone without domain expertise can ask the question and get the right answer.
But how are they going to ask the question?
Sorry?
But how do they ask the question if they don't know what to ask?
I'm not an expert in this area. ChatGPT, teach me everything you know about this thing so I can make the right decision with this scenario. All of a sudden, I know nothing about, pick a topic that I don't know about, and I can ask the AI to help inform me of everything I need to know.
It's I think it works and at some level, but
And
it's not it's not perfect, right?
it's
Like
not. Oh no, it's not
no,
perfect. But humans
it's
aren't
not
perfect either, right?
no, absolutely not. But I have quick backtrack. We have a Copilot that we released with a bunch of people, the same exact people who use this Copilot. Or they have the same tool, not the same people. We have the same group of people, right? Managers, and they use this to identify what's going wrong in this process flow. Some people can't find out what is wrong, and some people can find out what's wrong based off what the questions they're asking. So it's not a lack of knowledge at this point. Now it's them of like just critically thinking how to get to that answer. It's they have the same, they're in the same business space, they have the exact same domain knowledge, but they think differently and ask it a different way, and they can come up with patterns and find ways to like fine tune that. So that's why I'm saying it's scale work. It's going to work in a scale. You're going to have some people who just blow up with it, and some people who just benefit at a marginal level.
And imagine a today where generative AI has the critical thinking skills. And it might not be perfect, but neither are humans. But imagine that world. And so thinking about this is the transformation effects. What are those new roles? What are those new business models? Garrett, this is brilliant.
Yeah,
Jamal, and then we'll go to Ivan.
Yeah, hey, how's it going? Sorry for being a little late.
Oh, it's okay. We forgive you.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my thoughts are, I think that like having generative AI really depends on how you use it and how you take advantage of like making yourself more productive, right? There's different ways to go about doing that. So for example, I write software for a living. I've like trained my own localized large language model, took one of the open source ones off the shelf, fine-tuned it on like some of my internal code bases and documentation. So I can basically ask it questions as I'm onboarding into a new role on like how certain classes are implemented, or like what is a particular concept, or like what should I do to answer a support request. Whereas before, like I would have to like learn this stuff by reading the code, spending time talking to colleagues. It's helped me become more productive. So I feel like that's a use case as a knowledge worker, how you can use it to basically strengthen your abilities, at least right now in the short term. In the longer term, as these things become smarter, and as you mentioned, they can probably start to reason.
Yep.
Right, then maybe it can write code better than I can, right? But I feel like in the short to medium term, I don't think that I'm necessarily fearful for my job, thinking that AI is going to take it. I think it's going to make me better and more effective. And I always think there's always going to have to be some human interaction, right? So I think someone mentioned that you can use like ChatGPT or another one of these models and like ask it questions about anything, and it'll give you an answer, or someone is using it in that capacity. Like one thing, like understanding how these things work, is that you have to be careful of fact checking the results that you get, right?
Beautiful.
So like it can give you an answer, but it may be totally wrong. So if I'm asking the model to help me answer a question that a customer has that I don't know much about, I still take a second to like actually search through the documentation to see if what the model is saying aligns with what the correct answer should be, right? Because you said they can't reason. All they can do is predict what they think the next like sequence of text is based on whatever you give it as an input. In this case, a question, it gives you an answer.
Correct.
And
that's right. And again,
yeah.
So I completely agree with it. And hallucinations are real, but they're for both humans and AI. But that's just with large language models. When you start to add the layer of agentic AI, where you can give these tools a mission and a problem to go solve, that's where the replacement effects completely come in, and we can now start to eliminate humans from many of the decision-making processes. And that's that's where we're going. It's not there yet. And I know Dean put in the Zoom chat, when AI has reasoning, that will be a step change. And I completely agree with that. We're very, very close to that. Ivan, and then we'll go to Sri.
Yeah, so just going back to my to elaborate a little bit more on learning something. I think you mentioned, well, I can go to ChatGPT and ask, teach me everything about X subject. So yes, you can, but it's going to be primarily theoretical, and there's just so much you can BS your way before somebody throw you a curveball that understands a certain subject before you get caught in the middle of, oh shoot, I was just parroting whatever I learned out of ChatGPT. So there's has to be, I think, for instance, the investment I had a few years ago on Python, the investment and knowing what it can do for you. Now it's just using ChatGPT, for instance, augments those skills. So I'm probably more on the camp that says, if you're a subject matter expert or have at least good knowledge, this is just gonna make you better for sure. But you have to have certain expertise, if you will, on the subject matter. And then fact checking. Absolutely. I wrote the instructions for a chart that I want, and I could have one of my analysts do it for me, blah, 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 and have it ready every week that I need it for my presentations. The machine still hallucinates, and it's always on the last step. It's something very silly. I'm trying to map out, to plot how many defects or how many bad shipments I have on a given week. And I'm asking it to go in chronological order. I have information from July till May. It still mixes up. It's so silly that it's so simple. It starts putting first September, then August, and then December, and then it just mixes the whole month. And I yell at it. It's just because I have fun with it, thinking that it's a human. And I'm like, no, do it again. You're not following the chronological order. And it does it like 2 or 3 times. So I haven't found how to fix that glitch, because it just seems repetitive. Point is, you have to fact check your data, because even charts, it might come up with something that the machine thinks is doing right and it's not,
Right. And Jamal just put in the Zoom chat, what happens when you attempt to correct it? It doesn't take that feedback into account. Now, I'm going to push back on that, because Ivan, do you think it's the AI, or is it the way you are prompting it?
No, it's the AI, because then I said, and I even, and hopefully nobody gets offended, but I even go and wrote, for the love of God, the Virgin Maria, and Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, get the chronological order. And it doesn't. So it says, tell me, now finally gets it right. So it says, please tell me the exact words I need to tell you for you to do this. And then it spits out, all right, step number 6, you should write it this way. And I plug that in, it still gets it wrong.
It still gets it wrong. Interesting.
Yes.
And you're just using ChatGPT, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not using one of these agent platforms. Okay, so
no. I load up my data in Excel. And I'm going very manual, but it's delivered, because I want to walk through this until I see changes, etc. So
understood. All right, cool. Thanks, Ivan. Let's go to Sri and then Milind.
Yeah, thank you. It's a perfect segue on the prompt engineering. I was going to say, it's not that you make the ChatGPT or AI tool learn, you also learn better prompting at the end of the day. So I think the problem statement given to us was, what if I do not know anything? That's what Todd said here. So I'm clueless, but I'm asking some question. And the question is, you get an answer, you improve the response by do your own homework in the field of study, or not being a subject matter expert. So the point here is, based on the response, you need to constantly engage until you get to the point on what you're looking for. I'll give you an example on the project management. How do I satisfy my stakeholder? Okay, then it will say, make sure the requirements are documented, make sure the requirements are prioritized, make sure the requirements are done capacity analysis and things like that. And then can I just go and implement it? No, there is a context which is important. So you need to provide the context. My stakeholder is unhappy because of A, B, C, D. What do I do in this instance? I did all of this. So you don't go. It's not like you ask, you get. You ask, you get. No, it is constant evolution. You learn together. That's where in the Todd's graph of the human plus AI is a great perfect combination to learn. And if I do fact check, where do I fact check? I don't know. So that's where you need to do some homework. So prompt engineering.
Oh, we
They are
lost you,
living
Sri.
together.
We lost you there. But I just want to point out that, and I love what you just said about humans need to learn the prompt design and prompt engineering. I've just got some really bad news for you that AI has now solved the prompt engineering and prompt design problem. So we now have Python libraries that can actually do that for us and optimize the prompts that are fed into the large language models. So Sri, thank you. Milind, and then we'll go to Victor, and then I want to push back on everyone.
Hey, Todd, good evening, everyone. So I'm hearing a lot of good comments. A couple of things comes to my mind. We all talk about, this is being a threat. But one thing is, if everybody started using it, and someone brought up about domain expertise, so somebody needs to put in the real domain info for these models to pull in. So that domain expertise will remain. So in other words, now the existing model and the RAG models, eventually when you try to pull in the live data, anything that is going to get updated. So somebody will be doing that, and that's where you need the domain expertise. And then coming to a person with not any knowledge of that particular domain. So this could be a learning platform for them. And going back to someone's comment about replacing some of the jobs, I mean, this is a little, I would say, a paradigm shift, much bigger than what we anticipated. But if you look historically on the World War II, how the country has evolved and the manufacturing based, and then we started, both genders started working because they needed more manpower. Then the resources got deployed from manufacturing to service industry and then other industry. So I think this is going to be similar. It's just that the scale of it is exponential, because the learning, the way it is anticipated, a person to be productive or get productive into the domain that he's not knowledgeable with, rather than going to a library researching and looking for everything, he's going to get, so your time domain, a time slot is much lower now to accomplish certain task, at least as a good starting point. It may not give you 100%, but at least gives you like 50% of the starting point. Now, there are always going to be some inhibitions with some of the IP and especially intellectual properties that companies are concerned about.
Yeah.
So there are people working with enterprise level right now to figuring out how to contain that and contain export issues, contain any IP issues. But wherever I'm trying, instead of belaboring too much, what I'm trying to make out the point is the resources will be deployed, redeployed, and the need will be not so much on writing a program. Any of the manual tasks, any of the repetitive tasks will be taken care of by ChatGPT kind of environment, or any of generative AI kind of domains. Where the value lies is how you want to define that algorithm, how you want to define that your domain knowledge to use this tool to your advantage and to others' advantage.
Well, and to push back on the no joy work, the menial tasks will be done by AI. That's what's coming from the CEOs. That's what Mary said at the conference, that they are working to get rid of no joy work. The problem that we discussed last week is who's deciding what the no joy work is. And the joy comes from, it's a feeling. It comes from within the worker. There are going to be workers who you consider their jobs as no joy, but that's their livelihood that we're talking about. And that's the conflict. That's the problem that we're facing. Now, Milind, thank you for that. Victor, your thoughts?
Thanks.
I want to take this to another perspective. It's a generational perspective, right? So we, I think, have the luxury that we have our cognition, we have our lifetime of learning, we have our career of learning, we have our education through the current education system. But imagine a couple of generations down the road when all of this technology has grown up and all of us have died off, and our expertise and our ability to question has died off because we're going to rely as a society on AI being the source of cognition, right? And perhaps even innovation. But certainly that's going to be our knowledge base, presumably. And presumably the education system will change to make everyone coming up as children to learn how to work in that world, right?
Yes.
So now the question becomes, what does their future look like? What does their work life look like? What does their thinking ability look like? Is it going to be like us currently in the calculator, that we just rely on it because we don't need to count anymore? Is it going to become, our go-to thought process is to go to the whatever latest technology of compute and AI cognition, or whatever it'll be called a few generations from now? That's just our norm, that we go there and that's how we think. What does that do in terms of augmentation, replacement, and transformation? Because fundamentally, we're starting from a different place than children 2 generations from now will start from.
Awesome. Thanks, Victor. That's a great question. What's the future going to look like for the kids? Dean.
I think when OpenAI do the next release where it's going to have reasoning, and I think we're going to probably see that from probably in November after election, I think it's going to force, it's going at such a rate that it's exponential, right? It's just crazy. I think what's going to happen is the policymakers are going to have another really close look at this. So this has been interesting to see what impact will this have, because I think it will have a profound impact of jobs. And I didn't think that probably a year or so ago, but now I'm seeing the rate in my job, full-time, as a data scientist, is looking this day in, day out. And I'm now convinced that it will have an impact. And certainly what we're talking about, transformation effects, it will have. Just opportunities, no question, but the policy makers are going to have to, I think they'll probably slow this down a wee bit. I really do.
Interesting. I don't know. I would love to see how that plays out. By the way, Dean, I'm really glad that because I've been saying this for like a couple of years now, and you've changed your mind. This is taking jobs from people. Saima, I want to cold call on you because you put some good stuff into the Zoom chat. So I'm going to you. I hope that's okay for me to cold call on you.
Yeah, sure. I was just responding to Victor about the generational component. I think in this group we are very close to the same generation, but I'm struggling with my Gen Z team. I am so excited about our own internal GPT-4, and I use it every day for so many different purposes, and I want them to embrace it, but their response is, we really don't know how to use it for code. We'd rather write the code ourselves. So I think there's definitely some cognitive piece where they're in their 20s, they're still learning, they're still building their skills. So there's that hesitance on how am I supposed to put prompts and get the same result when I should really be doing this in Python. So yeah, no, I definitely am seeing that as an example. I don't know if other people are seeing that in other industries, but I don't see Gen Z, at least in my area, picking this up like the millennials or the Gen X.
Interesting. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, that's if they're coding, I'm actually kind of surprised by that, Saima, because coding is one of the easiest things to do with AI. And is what I'm experiencing. Adolfo just put into the Zoom chat, how is education going to change? So Adolfo, I'm cold calling on you, if you can speak. I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Victor has a great point, right? Which is, we're approaching tools in a different way, and we have to do probably a lot of heavy lifting to understand certain concepts. But I have a son who obviously has a different way of learning. And so my question is, how are our kids going to learn? And how is AI and large language models and agents and everything that is coming going to change the way we learn? Not just our kids, but we, right? We're still learning. And to me, that's an open question, right? That's an open question. It's at the same time exciting but also frightening because we don't know how much of our cognitive abilities are going to be really needed. It's an open question. I think I want to keep an eye on it.
How much of our cognitive abilities? I love that. And I'm going to argue none. You know, most of the work is my prediction that we will need our cognitive abilities to do the tasks of today. I love it. Thank you. Yuvika.
Yeah, so just chiming on this education piece, because of course, I think at the time when we went to school, we used our critical thinking abilities, we learned how to write, and when I studied in India, I actually didn't have access to a calculator until like maybe the 10th or the 11th grade. So, and now with AI kind of taking over, I'm sort of worried at the same time, like I'm excited about the technology that are the children and the generation, are they going to lose the ability to use their critical thinking skills, right? So now even in schools, children are moving away from writing, on paper, right? A lot of the times, like the laptops and the Chromebooks are being used. And there is research that actually shows that when we write, right, physically on the paper, we retain things better. And then I learned recently that they have started using AI into school. And I was like, how come your writing has improved so much, right? So those are some of the things that makes me worried that, okay, because is AI going to make us lazy, right? That we actually stop using our critical thinking skills. And then what if, the AI goes wrong and if nobody knows how to fix it, right? So you need to know how to how the things work, and you need to be able to use your critical reasoning and critical thinking skills. And I think I hope that it brings boom to the education, but I also feel that the ability to think and leverage our critical thinking skills is still like a part of school. And I was reading an article, I think it was maybe yesterday or today, that there was this emphasis on how learning how to code in school, it is still going to be useful. I know that we have these no-code tools available, but for children, right, that how understanding how the code, comes into play and what it can do, right? So just making sure that those things are balanced out properly.
I love that. And yes, learning how to code is still useful. I'm struggling that with my own students because it helps people think logically through a process. I love that. Brazina.
Yeah, so couple comments. I similarly to Eureka grew up actually in Lithuania. Calculators, we were not allowed to use it until second grade. But I'm actually really am excited, I think, as far as education goes and AI, because if I look at school or at the best teachers, here now with the AI and just access to the internet, you can even get tutors from anywhere in the world, or you can check the answer. I think I used to think teachers were gods and knew everything. And so often, even I think in history, it's depends who is in the history. So I'm actually, from education standpoint, I'm excited to see AI. And as we know, like YouTube University, I think in education, kids and even us who are no longer kids, but perhaps kids at heart, we can pick up some sort of, whether it's golf or music or dance, use YouTube University, learn it, and we don't have to have someone local who is an expert on it or charges obscene amount of money for private classes. So I think I actually see positivity in education that I can bring. As far as AI, and I think it will replace some jobs. But for example, my job now is basically building rockets. So I think just like in businesses, any business you take on, it's about execution. How many of us had an idea? How many of us executed an idea? And even those that had an idea and started executing, how many businesses or ideas you gave up on or failed on, right? So when I see at my job, perhaps, in the past, if we advertise and emails or faxes, we thinking of new ways, but to build a rocket, it takes so many pieces that I think those that will have a job, we could do a better proposal, we could do a better drawing for rockets and so on. But I think it's really humans will be the ones that will be successful, is ones that will be asking those questions. Because I think even AI, what question should I ask? What proposal, pricing, or whatever it may be. So I think it's asking the question and being able to execute on what you do. That's where the humans will play and be successful.
I love
That's
that.
my 2 cents.
I love it. So one of the things that I'm not getting, and I want to push back, I want folks to think about this in the context of a future where these agents literally could do all of these tasks. Okay. So all of the human decision making that everyone keeps saying that we're going to need the future. Imagine an AI agent that, given the proper information, could reason. We have that. We're on the verge of having that right now. So what roles, what business models, what industries would emerge in that universe? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Dawn.
So slightly different than that, but as you started talking, one of the things I was thinking was, I can see scenarios where in some industries where you will end up with kind of like AI versus AI. And that's a little bit like what you're getting at. So for example, in education, what if you have people who, with the help of AI, write a paper or even produce a report in the business place. And then you have a boss who basically, or a teacher who, kind of doesn't have time to read all these things or whatever, who automates the process of reviewing and grading these things. So you could have AI, and I think of even in marketing, where you've got AI that might be used to create an email campaign or something that would be, like a fundraising campaign or something, or whatever. And then you've got maybe people's phones or their email is set up to automatically detect solicitations. So it combats it.
That was part of the demo that the who was it that Google did? You're receiving a spam phone call and it cuts it off. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I want to put that.
Anyway, that's just what I was gonna say, that I can see where you will have people who are developing things with AI kind of going up against people who are evaluating, or maybe you kind of it's basically pitted against each other.
Dawn, thank you. And by the way, for the marketing stuff, yes, we are currently working on systems that are completely autonomous advertising campaigns. So in other words, this is the epitome of data-driven marketing. Every single person who is in the population that you are trying to advertise to gets their own individual customized advertisement. And be damned privacy, because there's a privacy issue, okay? But imagine that world. We're building that stuff right now. So yeah, we're also building content creation at scale, so that it's individual, it's personalized, it's customized. And Jamal put in the chat that he wouldn't trust it. You cannot trust the information provided by AI. It's misleading. We can only use it as an assistance if experts validate it. More focus on AI governance, more expert level job openings. Interesting. I like that. I'm going to copy and paste that into the deck here. But I guess one of my questions is, what would you need to see to trust it? Jamal, did you want to, you wouldn't trust it. So I'm going to call Jamal and then I'm going to go to Adolfo.
Yeah, I'll just briefly touch. So I guess like I wouldn't trust it to make decisions, right? So like you mentioned, we're very close to having these systems being able to totally reason and make a decision on the behalf of like a human, right? Maybe it's something like simple, like design a logo for my business and
beautiful.
I like it, right? And I want to approve upon it, and I don't want to have to think about going through that process. Then maybe yeah. But if it's something like like should we launch a nuclear warhead or should I let this like AI perform surgery on a human being, right? Like I wouldn't really trust it in that fashion. Or if it's from like a career standpoint, am I going to let this AI make a decision for me that's going to jeopardize my career? And then when it comes down to, like, why did I make this decision or let this happen? It's like, oh, the AI did it. It's not going to be a valid excuse, right? Like, I see that these things are going to, as they evolve and they get more sophisticated, they're going to be more of assistance to us to help us, like, make better, more informed decisions. But I don't think they'll have the full control unless the stakes are very low, in my opinion. That's the way I see it. I see it being more like a Star Wars and the droid scenario, like the Jetsons, where like the AI is there to help us and complement us, and rather than being like a brainiac situation where it becomes like the overlord and takes over the planet, which I think could potentially happen if you do trust it that much, right?
Right.
Where it make critical decisions on its own.
Adolfo, and then we'll go to Jorg because we haven't heard from him.
So I'm going to circle back with the previous discussion we started, which is you need critical thinking skills to evaluate if something can be trusted or not, right? The question is, we already know that many voters, for example, will trust anything as long as it comes from the apparently right source, right? So trust and developing critical thinking skills is going to be absolutely required to balance the power of anybody with AI that wants to manipulate or wants to control or wants to misinform. To me, that's the danger. And I'll leave you with two images that I think are very prescient. One is the Matrix, right? And folks connected on the back of this call. But even a better picture that I think will describe the situation is Metropolis by Fritz Lang. If you haven't seen Metropolis by Fritz Lang, it was produced in the 1920s, an excellent movie. To me, that scenario is not as gloomy, but what this idea that people are going to be trusting because it's easier to trust, because it comes from the internet, it comes from a source that looks reliable, is going to accelerate misinformation, is going to accelerate exploitation. That, to me, is something we want to be mindful of. And that's my concern. What happens if we take the easy path and start exercising our critical thinking? To me, that's a danger that we at least need to be aware of.
Awesome. Thank you. Jorg, we haven't heard from you.
Fantastic conversation tonight. I just wanted to go back for a second to the education piece. I think it's much more than just grading papers and automating teachers' activities. I think can be implemented also or integrated with learning. For example, this last semester, I was teaching a group of business school students, all seniors, about to graduate. In fact, they graduated this last May. And the topic was strategic management. And at the end of the course, it was a capstone course. They had to put together a strategic management plan for a company. So, and of course, how I told them how you can integrate artificial intelligence in coming up with the decision-making processes and what those outcomes would be for a particular company. At the end of the day, at the end of the semester, I think the key lesson learned there was that they needed to learn the fundamentals of what a strategic management plan was all about, so they could tell what right looks like in terms of the final product, which was the strategic management plan. So I think that was very valuable because they learned from the interaction between AI what AI thought was the right answer, but it was validated through their knowledge of doing their own research. So yes, AI was a great tool for them to use, but at the end of the day, it was their grade, and they needed to validate the decisions made or proposed by the artificial intelligence tool. On the other topic on trust, I wanted to just add that perhaps the same philosophy or methodology can be used in developing trust, and which is validating a process where people can just gain trust from a very transparent process of asking AI the reason why they went with that decision or that proposal or that suggestion. So that's basically, validation. Those of you that have gone through a doctoral program, you know that there is a what is called an institutional review board that every time that a dissertation is put together is run through a validation process, so to speak, to make sure that that dissertation makes sense in terms of research and therefore worthy of to be published. So I think artificial intelligence is not going to be the answer to everything, and we humans will always be in the loop.
I like that. I got to write that down. AI will not be the answer to everything, and humans will always be in the loop.
Yes,
I agree
sir.
with that. I agree with that. I'm not so sure on what time frame. I mean, I think at some point humans are going to integrate the AI into our bodies, and so therefore we'll completely be in the loop. But that's going out a few hundred years. Madison. Hi, Madison.
Yeah, hey, how are you?
Good, good.
Yeah, I just wanted to add just one tiny thing about the way I see AI now, probably in the future. We have talked about the fact that somebody mentioned already about the importance of the expert or in determining whether or not the output that we get from AI is valid. The thing that I see AI helping with is this concept of, like when you go to the doctor and they say, okay, you have cancer of this, and you're like, okay, before I ever go under any chemo, I want to check with the other doctor or I want to be sure that that is what I'm suffering from. So I see AI having this second opinion factor in many things, and because I honestly would not trust AI blindly. I think somebody mentioned this thing again about will you be comfortable to go under the knife that is held by an AI for surgery? And so there's this thing. So I think that I am more or less comfortable with a second opinion. I'm happy when I already have a hunch of something and then I ask AI and AI gives me something that by my evaluation, I think that it makes sense. Then I'm happy with that. But if it's something off, for sure I would trust my opinion, not AI's opinion.
I love it.
In that respect.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, Madison. Let's go to Gary. We've heard a lot from Avika, but then we'll come to Avika in a second.
Yeah, hi. I just comment. We haven't heard a lot about robots.
Okay, tonight. Robots.
And there are manual jobs, housekeeping. Is a robot going to change a bed, clean a room, do maintenance? All the hotel industry, what's going to happen with that? With AI, like reservations and all that kind of behind the scenes stuff. But these are physical jobs and robots. Are we going to see that happen where robots are going to knock on your door and say, are you gone? Because they're going to know it's 11 a.m. You should be gone. So that hasn't come up tonight, but I'm just very curious because I'm in that space right now, which for some reason I enjoy, because AI isn't going to take it away. yet. But
Jetsons, I love
robots
it.
is what I think about. So anyway, I just wanted to add that.
RoboCops. Yes.
Right. Right.
The movie Atlas, that fighting robots. I saw that on Netflix. It was great. Saima.
Sorry. So yeah, I was just gonna talk about the doctors and the patients. I got this amazing quote from a clinical psychologist. I posted the picture. I encourage everyone to read it. He talks about how Google is talking about, AI will replace doctors, but not talking specifically about the elements that are replaceable and the elements that are not. So if you click on it, it will make it larger and you can read through it. I just attended AI in Cancer Methods conference today. Silvana was there from HBAP. And what we're seeing in healthcare is really transformation on everything that is burning out our healthcare workers. So one of the things which was really cool I want to share is right now when you have a brain tumor, and surgery is one of it's the most used intervention for brain cancer. So when a surgeon takes a sample, it is sent to a pathologist. It can take days, it can take weeks. There's a lot of pressure on the pathologist to get a diagnosis quickly, so it can be resolved. AI is currently being used in studies at Harvard Med, where they're using that sample and using AI to augment the checking of the type of cancer. And they have great results, better results. So the second opinion, better results than just human alone. And it's getting rid of a lot of the human errors that would be made because people are tired and there's burnout. And right now what they're checking is there's a study they're doing in Brazil, Harvard Medical and a hospital in Brazil, where they have the pathologist with the AI tool right in the operating room. So the minute they have the sample, the specimen, in minutes, they can use AI and have a clinical decision made by a pathologist and have an intervention. So that is what we're seeing. We're seeing the time get shorter with this kind of augmentation. So I think the whole AI will replace doctors maybe in about 20 years. But right now, I don't think any doctor or any researcher at Harvard, at least, is looking at, okay, how do we replace doctors? Everyone is just like, how do we augment our current system so that we can provide faster treatment, faster prognosis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it was just a really, really cool conference.
I love this. Thank you, Saima. Yeah, so AI to replace doctors, 20 years. And when we say replace doctors, I want to just be clear that an AI doctor will have all of the knowledge, the longitudinal knowledge, all of the decision diagnostics capabilities, and the dexterity to do the procedure it's prescribed. Is that what we're saying? AI doctors, 20 years? Saima?
No, that's just I just made that up. I don't know. The way Gen AI is going, I don't know. But it's not a big, in healthcare, it is not something that everyone is running towards.
They're not running towards it. Okay.
No, they're not. There's so much more that we can do right now. And then let's not forget, in the US, there's a whole big force called the insurance companies and how their payment models are. So, which is also going to dictate a lot of this adoption in the future. So.
Yeah, regulation introduces friction to AI adoption. Definitely. All right. Yuvika, you had your hand up earlier and I skipped over you, but I want to give you the last shot at this. We got 5 more minutes in the live session.
No worries at all. I think there were some really great points that were mentioned, and I think it just comes down to what do you want to use the AI for? I don't think we want to use it to replace humans. We want it to help us, right? So I think that's what it comes down to, and who it's going to impact, right? You have to think about the risk and the impact. So every action has a reaction. So when you're using the AI or designing the AI, think about what you want it to be used for and who is ultimately going to be impacted by it.
I absolutely love it. All right. So now I did have other events and other things for us to talk about, which we're just not going to get to because I didn't want to interrupt this conversation. And let me see if I can pull up, where do I have this? All right. So I do have a debrief. Let me just get to that. I have more pastures here: ethics, bias, and fairness, and what were the skills and mindsets of an AI-driven future? These were some other questions that I will wind up asking my students. And I did have a transformation workshop where we are, and we could do this another time, where we would explore how do we recreate an operating model using the knowledge of, hey, AI is going to replace all of this stuff. Let's reinvent a workforce. Let's reinvent an organization from the bottom up, from using first principles with AI. And again, so this is just the back end to that workshop, which we're not going to do tonight. But business model and operating model alignment. Again, the business model is the value creation, value capture, and then there's the operating model, which is the value delivery. We've all seen the business model canvas. We've all seen the value proposition canvas. By the way, if you haven't, you now have homework. But one thing that I think most people have not really talked about and nor have they seen is the operating model canvas. And this is a fantastic book. I'll have to find the link. I don't know what I did with it. What did I do with the link? I can't find it. I'll find it. Where it's the value delivery chain. So it's, again, this is what the organization does internally to deliver on the value proposition. So this is the value delivery chain, the main work to deliver this to ultimately to the customer. This is the value proposition. And there's these other quadrants, the suppliers. This is the information about the suppliers who support the value delivery chain. Then there's the location. Where is the work of the value delivery chain going to be done? Then there's the organizational structure. This is the information about the people in the organization and who has decision authority. And then information quadrant is about the software applications and infrastructure needed to support that value delivery chain. And then there's the management system. This really has to do with the various processes, the planning, the budgeting, the performance, and the continuous improvement processes within the organization. And so the question that I was going to ask is, how can AI help create new tasks, new roles, I've asked this and we kind of discussed it earlier, but this was for the primary purposes of the breakout rooms, was how can AI help create new tasks, new roles, new business models, new operating models, new industries, and new ecosystems? And the goal for this exercise would be to look at these new AI-driven operating models and ultimately replace as many human roles as possible, with the assumption, and again, this is a horrific idea. Like we kind of, got that. We understand this. Like, we're going to replace as many humans as possible. Yes. The transformation effects concept leads us here. And so the exercise, which maybe we'll do another night, is really to focus on this. Let's get rid of every single human in the organization. How do we do that? And we talked about this, how do we make it so that we can trust it? What do you need to see? What do I need to show you? Do I need to show you a demonstration of one of these agents and you say, here's the mission, go solve it, and X dollars of tokens for OpenAI later, you get an answer, you get a report, you get the spreadsheet that didn't have Ivan's analysis done properly, but now it's done properly. That's where we are today. We can now set these things in motion. So how do we replace, as the business leaders, how do we replace as many humans as possible? Because if we're not thinking about it, the bosses of the businesses are. And if they're not, their competitors are. And yeah, this is a horrific idea. Why do we want to do this? Well, because some folks are working on it. Mary's already working on it. She's trying to get rid of the no joy work. So it's already being done. So the goal of the workshop was to, ideate this new AI first operating model and ideate on that. So just in terms of the debrief for tonight, and I know we're at time, but just please stick around. If you gotta go, I understand. Stick around for overtime. But this is from the AI conference, and I took a photograph, and this is from Ethan Malik, so he gets full credit for this. 4 questions for organizations, and what useful thing you do is no longer valuable. Okay, this is something that business leaders need to think about. The second question was, what impossible thing can you do now? This is the transformation effects. What can you do? What can you more down market or democratize? And number 4 is, what can you move up market or personalize? And we've kind of actually hit on many of these topics. And then he mentioned, this is also from his book, The Four Principles, invite AI to do, I thought I had a different slide. Invite AI to do everything, be the human in the loop, tell it who it is and treat it like a person. And this is the worst AI you will ever use. Oh, here it is, sorry. I was supposed to skip that slide. This is from his book, Co-Intelligence. Always invite the AI to the table, be the human in the loop, treat AI like a person, but tell it what kind of person it is. Again, this is like, really? Ethan Mollick is suggesting that we treat AI like a person, and you're going to get better results out of it. And then number 4 is assume this is the worst AI that you will ever use. Now, thanks, Susie. Thanks, Uvika. These are the predictions. I think many of you have already seen me talk about this, but when it comes to AI, all predictions are wrong, but I do believe that we are entering and witnessing humanity's Star Trek moment, of course, unless we decide to burn it all down. This is incredible. We are going down this path where AI can literally replace almost everything that humans do in a certain time frame. This post-labor economy is something that we're going to really have to explore and figure out how we're going to exist in this, in that universe. Again, those augmentation effects and replacement effects lead to a transformation. That transformation is a fully new AI-driven business, an AI-driven workforce. And there's humans outside of the loop where we've replaced the humans in that new economy. So what do we do? How do we eat? How do we pay our bills? Things have to change fundamentally. And there's a lot of, we can debate this for hours. Some people think that we need to accelerate, put the pedal to the metal, and I'm not going to stop until I see a checkered flag or God, was the quote from last week. And if we accelerate into a post-labor economy, that means fewer people will die, as opposed to maybe we have to go through Mad Max in order to get to Star Trek. That's all of that is uncomfortable to discuss. Number 4 is this adoption lag. There will be a lag in how fast these changes occur. In other words, it takes time for organizations to learn how to use ChatGPT and within their workforce. However, as these technologies, as these agents become better and better and better, and I mean weekly, they become better and better and better, companies that can adopt that technology quickly will absolutely have a massive competitive advantage over the slow movers. And by the way, the other thing, and I'm working on an article for this, is about if you have not already gone through your digital transformation. The original hypothesis was that it's too late. You're so far behind, you're never going to catch up. I've got good news for you. With generative AI, you can start your digital transformation right now and get as far ahead or farther than someone who started it 1, 2, 5, 10 years ago. Because generative AI now can solve we don't have our data in an organized, tidy spreadsheet. It's now scattered all over the place. It's not organized. Today, that's a huge superpower with generative AI. And then this number 5 question here is these incumbents' advantage over startups. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm all into startups. So the question is, do these incumbents who have the resources, they have the money, they can go hire a team of crackpot, Python programmers and build things. But again, they still suffer from the culture, the ambidexterity, the structure, the financial issues that have always plagued incumbents. I just hope that they don't listen to Mike Tushman and Charles O'Reilly and Andy Binns and read Tushman's latest books, because that's the answer for incumbents to absolutely have that advantage over startups. And these are some of my work in progress recommendations, little Todd humor here, 5 things to do in the age of AI. Number 1, that's 5 things, it's 10, I know. Lifelong learner, critical thinking. You need to have that the lifelong learner growth mindset, be curious, stay informed, get on top of this stuff. The critical thinking, which we've all talked about, is the problem solving. We have to make sure that we know how to solve those problems. Having an interest in math and statistics and coding, again, stuff that you've already talked about. Master the soft skills. It's the communication, it's the resilience, it's the human connection that really matters. Collaboration and networking, people and AI. Become a generalist and a specialist. I was told many years ago that you need to specialize in one thing. If I was a specialist, and in the area that I had chosen to specialize in, I would be out of a job right now. That job no longer exists. So the fact that I am by heart, by design, by, everything that interests me, a generalist, I now have work and value that I can bring to the world. Okay, maybe not capture, but that's a separate story. But I like the concept of being a generalist with the specialist, and AI can help you do exactly that. Number 7, this is just startups, man. It's an entrepreneurial mindset. Find the problems, solve them. Keep in mind the consideration of the morals and ethics about this, the creativity and the innovation. This, I believe, is one of the things that will help drive humanity forward. This is the future of work. Is the innovation side of this, and it was mentioned earlier tonight, and we talked about it last week, was master the art of the possible. And then I've been working on this. This needs to be cleaned up, but the 5 things that organizations must do in the age of AI, and this is currently at 8. But rethink all business practices and business models, and that was the transformation effects. If you're in this early stage of this, my recommendation is put AI in the hands of all of your employees. Think of this as coming out of your R&D budget. The problem, though, is you must learn from them. You must ask your employees to provide you with the information, the knowledge, what works, what doesn't work with the AI tools that you're giving them. That is absolutely fundamental, that the organization can benefit from the R&D, the learning, and the experience that your employees are having. So Sima, if your Python programmers aren't using AI, figure out why and get them to use it, and figure out what's the bottleneck, what's the friction for them. The performance gaps, the opportunity gaps, and the wish lists. The wish list came from Nick Petsis. Kudos to him for coining that wish lists. This is Tushman's performance gaps and opportunity gaps. AI gives organizations the ability to start to close those gaps. So don't fire your employees that have been augmented or replaced. Embrace them, empower them, teach them, and help you get through the wish list. That's the superpower that organizations will be able to benefit by using AI. Again, master the art of the possible, adaptability, risk management. Make sure that your incentives for your employees, your humans, are properly aligned, because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. And then prepare for the exponential change. Agility, speed, adaptability, and flexibility. Like we talked about things tonight that as if they don't exist, yet they do. They absolutely exist. Prompt engineering is no longer a skill that is needed, right? We need it. Oh, because I'm typing in and I'm prompting and design and I have to make my code and stuff like that. Yes, I get it. That's today. We now have systems that you can give it this, optimize my code prompt, optimize my prompt, figure out what's the best prompt for this large language model, and it's all automated. That's where we are today. And I think that is, I've got a couple of other, again, the AI bomb has already exploded. We just haven't been hit by the blast wave yet. And in the age of AI, the only future where we thrive is through our human relationships. And my question that I ask my students is, if you think or create for a living, then will your current job eventually be replaced by AI? And again, I'll leave it on this one. Master the art of the possible. That's everything. I hope, excuse me, I hope this was fun and useful. Thank you all for coming. And I would love to get your feedback on this.
Todd, are you sharing the slides that you presented tonight?
No. Maybe. I don't know why. I will share I will put together the written slides, the typed slides that I'll definitely provide you guys with.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The capturing of the ideas.
All the information, all the discussion stuff I will release. I didn't release it last week because I wanted to kind of keep it all together into one bundle. So yeah, I will put it all together and post that in the regular channels that everybody sees me spam.
Yeah, Todd, and the other question I had is, why would we have a goal of, as you indicated in one of the slides, replacing humans? Can you explain that one?
That was the exercise. The exercise is for us to think, and I'm sorry we didn't get to it. I really should have. I wanted to cut the conversation. I'm like, we're not going to have enough time to do the exercise, but I like the conversation more than I like the exercise. The exercise is about pushing us to embrace the transformation effects, pushing us to ideate on a universe where humans are being removed from the workforce actively. How could we do that? Let's look through our current operating models, or come up with, better still, come up with a new, I should be clarified, look through our current business models and operating models, and let's create a new business model and a new operating model. That's the goal, is a brand new, completely transformed. Let's think about the problems facing humanity from a first principles approach. Let's start a new business that is 100% AI and has as few humans in it as possible, that provides that value, that delivers on that value. So one of the pedagogical hypothesis for creating that exercise is to push people to start to think about, okay, here's your current organization. You have employees from the CEO all the way down to someone who cleans facilities. Okay, whatever organization, whatever industry, what humans can we replace with AI? And what would we need that AI to be capable of in order to replace that person? And the scary thing is, those things that are necessary to replace that person are increasing exponentially. So a year ago, when I started teaching my class, it was like, oh, well, the AI can't do this. Within the first semester, it started to do that. So all of those problems are getting checked off very, very quickly. So that was the purpose of the exercise. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, I was the direction I was going with that is that perhaps instead of thinking in terms of replacing humans, we want to think in terms of replacing tasks that are repetitive for humans.
Yep. That's exactly right. And in fact, that is what's the role? The role is made up of a series of tasks. How do we look at those? This is the granularity. This is the workshop. What are the tasks? What can we, I didn't get there. But how do we remove, like, okay, that's the task. How do we know that the task is done properly? And all of a sudden, a job that is done by a human today, what is that? It's made up of a series of tasks.
Right.
So at some point, as augmentation effects roll into replacement effects, right? We're augmenting that human, the role, with those tasks. Those tasks are now augmented by AI. Let's move forward. X days, weeks, months, years. As the AI gets better exponentially, all of a sudden, all of the tasks of that human role are replaced by AI. And then again, like that's what Ethan Malik said, this is the worst version you're ever going to play with. So my goal was to really push us forward. And I'm still not sure that this is the right exercise. This is like me beta testing education ideas for my students. And just
we might just end up not replacing any humans and just assisting those humans with the actual task development and all the things that AI can do in assisting humans, but not necessarily replacing those roles. And I know Gary's jumping out of his seat there.
Yeah. I'll call him.
No. But it's really about like my observation of where I work in hotels. So kind of housekeepers do stuff, and then there's someone that checks the rooms. So you got double things that AI needs to do. And is AI going to audit another AI person?
And I think that, listen, we already have that right now. I forgot, I don't have the link handy, but there's a platform that is where humans can sign up and get paid to do work that's assigned by an AI. Like, understand the reversal there. That's just nauseating and frightening and exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
And Gary, so like the question for this exercise is, okay, if you want to focus on the role of a human who currently cleans a hotel room, what technology would you need in order to replace that person? And again, we understand this intuitively. Well, I need a robot that's capable of doing all of these subtasks at or above the level of a human. So the good news is we don't have that yet today. But we're going to get there. By the way, the aside tangent here is, well, is it cost effective? Like at a certain point, it's like, that's just not, like, I can still pay a human to do that task. And I don't have to pay them much because we
Right.
all understand that that's not a very high paying, job at this point. So those are
But it's a skilled job. Some
a
people
skilled
are
job.
great at it. So I don't want to play it off as a low skilled job. There
is
are
a high
people
skilled
that
job.
are great at it. So
But writing a
wanna-
report, okay, that's not a high skilled job. The quality of the report is the metric of is it
Sure,
good?
right.
But right now, today, we can spin up an agent.
Right.
You give it a mission and say, here's the report I want you to go do. Okay,
Right.
let me make it even more specific. Imagine you're a researcher working
Right.
on a PhD.
Right.
I can now deploy an AI agent to do the research for me.
Right.
Gather the data, create surveys, run an experiment, gather the information as a result. Sorry, I should take a step back. Create the hypothesis. Okay. Do a research for the contextual analysis, like do the literature review. Do we know this? Do we not know this?
Yep.
This is doable right now. Today.
KPIs. This
Well,
is
that's
great
it.
for KPIs.
Simon, you got your hand up. Let me.
Yeah.
I want to stop recording, but yeah, go ahead, Simon. Sorry.
Yeah. Please stop recording.
I'm going to stop recording. Thank you all for coming.